picked up a faint noise. It was a quiet, seemingly fearful sound, the sort of sound prey made as it clumsily attempted to sneak around. Hearing this, the guilty Ra lifted its lion head upward, then almost seemed to sigh with raw disappointment. To the guilty Ra, hunting was the very reason for its existence. It could think of no greater joy than to catch fleeing prey with its claws, plunge in its fangs, and drain the life from its mark to sate its empty belly. What mattered for the hunt was whether the prey was worthy of the fangs of the king. Hunting strong, sturdy, able-legged prey, taking it down through brute force, the current hunt completely failed to live up to those standards. Having its expectations dashed put the guilty Ra in the most terrible of moods. Of course, it did not even think of defying the orders of its master. But it would obey those orders and nothing else. It simply owed a debt to the master, who had liberated it from the curse of the horn. Accordingly, it had listened to her request. Moving its nose around, the guilty Ra pursued the sound of the footsteps as its prey tried to slink away. Defenseless, thoughtless, unrestrained, futile. They were the footsteps of the weak, lacking any elegance whatsoever. The guilty Ra sprinted with shocking agility that contrasted with its huge frame. Its four thick limbs did not make a sound as they trod upon the floor, a feat that brought into sharp relief why it was also called the Shadow Lion. Like an assassin, the Black King of the Forest was a silent nightmare as it raced, seemingly leaping through the halls of the moonlit mansion. The 62 Golden Agato MP4Directs.com footsteps it followed gradually became less guarded, betraying no sign of noticing the death stalking so very close. The one making the footsteps was right around the corner. The king swung a claw just beyond that corner, a single blow that would rend the prey's back apart, throwing its corpse to the ground, and expose its humiliation in full. However, 99 right after swinging its claw, the guilty Ra paused, sensing something was off. The presence it was certain was there had vanished, and the only one standing in the corridor was the great and dignified king. The foolish, fragile, disgustingly weak prey had vanished, nowhere to be found. A moment later, another sound of shoes reached its ears, and the guilty Ra ferociously took up its pursuit once more. Its target was using the stairs, heading for the floor below. The sound of fleeing, running footsteps made the guilty Ra reassess its prey ever so slightly. It had gone from intolerably weak to a fool worthy of killing. If its quarry had merely been running wildly, the beast would have settled for ending things with a single claw swipe, cruelly slashing the fool apart. However, this prey had refused the king's mercy, willingly rejecting a quick death, and so it would die 1,000 deaths instead. The guilty Ra kicked off the wall of a landing, its huge frame seemingly dancing as it leaped down the stairs. The hulking monster gave chase, reaching the second floor before going down one more, pursuing its prey to the lowest floor. In the distance, somewhere beyond the building, it heard the voice of its master trying to call it back. For an instant, the guilty Ra pondered that voice, but it prioritized the prey right before its eyes. It was this very prey that had earned the master's ire. It would swiftly dispose of the fool and then rejoin her. Die, foolish prey. This is the greatest glory for those who defy the master. Feeling a surge of emotion, the king forgot even to suppress its own sound as it sprinted. The thunder of its very powerful footsteps announced to its fleeing prey, the king, death itself, has come for you. 63 Golden Agato MP4Directs.com. Go ahead. Try to run. Flee pathetically in a panic. Show me your back, so that I may flay it open for you. Up ahead, it heard the sound of a door closing. The guilty Ra did not hesitate to force it open by slamming its body home. This sent the door flying with great ease, and the guilty Ra was greeted by a particularly spacious room. It was not a small, cramped room like the stupid, ignorant prey had fled into earlier. It was a spacious room where the guilty Ra could swing its claws and leap around with its giant frame to its heart's content. Perhaps the prey was finally invoking the last of its spirit to challenge the guilty Ra to a duel. However, the prey was nowhere to be seen, and at the back of the room, the monster heard the sound of yet another door closing, the door of an entrance separate from the one it had destroyed, and connecting the guest room to a smaller one, had shut. In the end, that is all you have, thought the guilty Ra, genuinely disappointed. The guest room came with a large table with a white cloth over it and, atop that, a row of lit candles. The flickering flames illuminated the king's red face as, with heavy steps, it headed for the little room in back. Its vile tail, like a great serpent, sharply swung about, easily slicing the wooden door apart. Savagely springing its forelegs up, the guilty Ra drew in its breath. It then pushed in with a roar. Oh my! Devastation! If there was a word worthy to describe what occurred in this sad tale, that was it. Absolute devastation. As the guilty Ra swung its tail about, wildly raging with its bestial claws, the interior room was dominated by destruction worthy of the name. The cupboards storing foodstuffs and the cold storage were destroyed, while smoke erupted from the sacks and boxes lining the wall. The floor, struck by the heavy impact of paws, broke apart, and the carpet covering it was destroyed a moment later. The guilty Ra's vision was blanketed with white smoke. A vast quantity of dust sprang up, clouding the air and irritating the great beast's nostrils. It was enough to rob it of its eyesight and even prevent it from breathing in enough to roar. You fell for it? Then a voice rang out, as if the prey was shouting in 64 Golden Agato MP4Directs.com victory. Then it heard that voice, not from the small room but from the previous, wide room. Eat the power of science, baby dust explosion. After a brief noise, it threw something into the small room. Something flickered red within the guilty Ra's nearly all-white field of vision. It was one of the candles from the guest room. The candle struck the wall, and for a moment, the reddish flame glowed brighter as it landed upon the floor. But that was all that happened. The candle remained on the floor, showing no further sign of change. The one who had thrown it was frozen in place and sounded like there'd been a miscalculation. The guilty Ra's regal instincts screamed this was a golden opportunity. Something had put its opponent into a disadvantageous state. Even if that had not been the case, surely this trick would have been insufficient to put the guilty Ra in peril. Nay, it would not underestimate its foe further. It would utilize every store of power. It would rend its prey apart, flay its skin, and feast in victory on the flesh and blood. That's why we told you. We shouldn't have tried this nonsensical method. Normally, it's faster to do it this way. The instant it leaped out of the little room, the guilty Ra picked up a high-pitched voice and an even higher-pitched voice. Clearly different from the prey it had spotted earlier, and the instant after it had that realization, a large quantity of something poured down from overhead. It was a liquid. Certainly not water, and it felt slippery to the touch. Bathed in the yellowish fluid, the king felt its fangs trembling at having its proud black mane tarnished. However, it had the luxury to consider this for but a single instant. This is the personal merchandise of Otto Su when oil bought with the entirety of his life savings. How do you like my wares? As the prey shouted with joy, the guilty Ra had no way to stop what came next. 65 Golden Agato MP4Directs.com The candles ignited the oil that had drenched the entirety of its body, wreathing the king with abominable flames. 5_op POS The Black King of the Forest had left the wilds, gaining a master, and, to the very end, wondered about the throne it had left vacant. Still unaware of what had defeated it, the demon beast was enveloped by flame the same color as its burning humiliation, scorching its body black, torching it until it had been reduced to ash. For so you can throw the sound of just footsteps, eliminate sense. Little tricks like that are all your magic can do. Having you belittle them weighs upon my mind, but I am impressed you remember such a thing. That said, will these spells prove useful? At most, they can make an opponent turn their head for but a single instant. Super useful. We can use this to lure it into the trap. After that, I'll use the power of science to blow it away. You certainly seem extremely confident, but this so-called power of science, a dust explosion, the strongest trick in the book. Using foodstuffs makes it really simple to boot. With a bit of flour and an open flame, it'll work great. From what I know, it's guaranteed to send a single monster flying. We went along with your plan because you sounded so confident, and now look at what's happened. Oh, shut up. Scientific progress comes with sacrifices, you know. Damn, why'd it fail? Not enough dust, not enough flame. Or do the laws of physics in this world just not work the same way? Arg. Stop talking about that and keep up. Ack, it's no good. No. With Subaru and Otto angrily yelling at each other, Petra scolded them with a desperate look on her face. The noisy trio was being illuminated by the brilliant light of red flames. That was only natural, for at present, they were doing their best to put out the fire in the dining hall. However, the flames seemed to be only getting 66 Golden Agato MP4 Directs.com stronger. You used too much oil, damn it. You sure as hell spread it around enough. How'd you plan on putting it out? As if anyone can hunt down such a huge demon beast while holding back. In the first place, it'd be the same result whether I used it all up or not. You're buying every last drop either way. Both of you, this isn't the time. We can't put it out. Let's run. With a frustrated look on his face, Subaru hurled the tablecloth, which had also caught on fire, into the quickly growing flames. There was no sign of the inferno in the pantry burning itself out. It had already spread to quite a bit of the dining hall, and black smoke began to seep out. We managed to defeat the demon beast, but the cost we paid is too high. The source of the flames was the black and charred demon beast, the guilty Ra. Just as they'd planned, Otto's sneaky magic had led it downstairs, where they used a dust explosion in the pantry to bring it down, or not, since the dust explosion had failed. Instead, Otto had secured their victory by using his stock of oil to burn the thing to death. The beast was a muscle brain befitting its enormous frame, especially considering how it never suspected a thing as it fell into the trap. But because it flailed around wildly as it died, the flames had transferred to everything around it, completely setting the mansion on fire. This isn't a repair job anymore. It's a tear down and rebuild job. Is this really the time? Let's run. Before we lose the stairs. Quickly. Quickly. Subaru found it surreal to watch the familiar sights and spaces catch on fire as the other two grabbed him by his sleeves and dragged him off. Pulled by the pair, Subaru readjusted Rem on his back as they ran from the burning dining hall. Otto and Petra used repel stones to drive away any demon beasts that appeared along the way. There were also signs that demon beasts were fleeing the building, instinctively fearful of black smoke and fire. But what if Garfield burns to death from this? Without the guilty Ra prowling around, Garfield can escape, too. Besides, surely he can send demon beasts packing and leap out of the building all by himself, even without using the escape route. 67 Golden Agato MP4 Directs.com. Subaru was trembling from unwittingly wrecking the entire battlefield, but even in that situation, Otto remained as clever as ever. Thanks to that, they arrived at the upper floor in good order. Fortunately, no other demon beasts immune to the effects of the repel stone appeared. Subaru and company fled into the study, and Petra operated the mechanism on the bookshelf on the wall slowly, making a sound. The bookshelf moved, and the hidden passage heading underground, linked to the outside, revealed itself. We did it? Subaru. It's the hidden passage. With this, we can get out of here. Yeah, I suppose so. If you head down to the bottom of these stairs and follow the passage, you can escape outside. The exit will be well outside the perimeter. That just leaves, here, Otto. Take REM. Yes, I understand. I will take very good care of her. Nodding to Petra, who was overjoyed they had made it, Subaru turned his back to Otto next. Then he slowly, gently passed Rem from his back onto Otto's. His movements were careful, so as not to let her fall. Do not drop her. Do not let her get hurt. And do not touch her in strange ways. Setting your concerns aside, your possessiveness comes across as quite bothersome. Hey, you too. Why are you talking like that? With Otto now carrying Rem on his back, Subaru flippantly warned to be careful. Hearing this exchange, Petra raised a question with a worried face. From the way you're talking right now, it sounds like Subaru isn't coming with us, that's just how it is. Sorry, but I can't run with you. From this point on, I gotta go it alone. Why? When Subaru confirmed her suspicions, Petra's face paled as she clung to him. Let's run already. The mansion's on fire, and it'll just make more trouble for Miss Frederica. There's still a lot of demon beasts, and it's not like you can beat them if you fight them, Subaru. So let's run. Well, that's all totally true, but I can't run from this. I can't run. Not yet.